So today we are joined by Dr. Nitasha Buldeo, who is here to talk to us about her skincare brand and her story about how it all came about.
I'm Nitasha. I do multiple things. I'm a brand owner. I own an organic skincare brand called Organic Apoteke. But I'm also a research scientist. I study the effects. I study human performance and how we could improve not just brain function, but entire body function.
Oh.
And I also teach yoga. Multiple things.
Lovely. So Nitasha, you've mentioned you have your own brand. Can you tell us a little bit about how it all came about?
Yeah, so in terms of skincare, really it started in childhood. My grandmother was an Ayurvedic practitioner, trained in India in the traditional way, and then moved to South Africa where she didn't have access to herbs that she was trained to use. So what she decided to do was collaborate with traditional African doctors to find a way to use herbs that was growing in South Africa, but also to try and grow her own herbs. And so what she started literally in the back garden was growing herbs, and then she would cook up these medicines and skincare products. And as a child, what always fascinated me was what would go into the medicines or the creams were very often the same things that would go into my dinner. And my grandmother was very successful in what she did. I remember as a child getting up in the morning and it seemed like there were hundreds of people waiting just to see her. So I suppose I was sort of in awe of her. And the one question I would always wonder is why? Why was she so popular, and why did so many people want what she was cooking on her stove? While she was very scientific in that she kept very good notes of her formulas and the effects that they had on skins, what she couldn't answer for me was, but what happened inside? What happened inside the skin? What was the change? And I pursued a scientific career, and during one of my postgraduate studies I needed a project. So I decided to go back and look at my grandmother's formulations, did in vivo studies. And what I realized was she happened upon formulas that were anti-inflammatory, antibacterial. So she was using multiple herbs together that sort of not only cured an infection, but also reduced inflammation. Hence, she was getting not only long-term results, but very quickly. And of course, as you know, as I tend to do, when something looks really good, I need to look for the flaw. And so realized that the one flaw in my grandmother's preparations was that the base that she was using. So she had all these amazing active ingredients that were doing wonderful things, but the base that she was using was very standard at that stage. It was your microcrystalline wax base cream. Now this was sort of the late 80s. So organic was not a thing. I remember when I started talking about parabens, people thought I was crazy. You know, parabens are similar to estrogen. I was like, no, not at all. But that sort of inspired me to actually look for a more natural base. Also, when I was doing my studies, I realized that if these active components sat on the surface of the skin, they would have an effect. However, if I could get them to penetrate to sort of deeper layers, the effects will be amplified and healing would be more rapid, and we could actually, as opposed to just resolving skin issues, we could actually start
Preventing them,
getting the skin to actually heal itself. So I created, it took years to do, but I created something, a formula, a multiple microemulsion that was completely natural. Organic was not a big thing at that stage. I was really, really pleased. And then I met my husband, moved to the UK. And by that stage, I'd set up a healthcare practice and started mixing these creams. I was also working in research, started mixing these creams. And while I was working in research, I said to one of my professors, talked about the studies that I'd done and how effective the space was. And he said to me, well, you have to patent it. And really that was the start of my brand, because in order to get a patent, I needed a company name. So I set up a company name, and then I started mixing these formulas and selling them in my little practice. And literally, it was a home industry. I cooked them up in my kitchen, printed labels on my inkjet printer, and started selling it to clients that were coming in to see me. And it soon developed into, well, I couldn't manage the business really. What was happening? I was working as a full-time practitioner and I couldn't handle the sales.
Yeah.
So I set up a website purely so that it could handle sales, but so people could order and pay online, and then they could just come in and collect the product from me. And then we got picked up by a chain in the US.
Okay.
Very interested in these products, because by this stage it was certified organic.
Yeah.
This was sort of 2006, 2007. Yeah, we got picked up by this chain, and in 2007, in April, orders were confirmed, and I was due to launch in 300 stores in the US by August of that year. And really, that's when I had to set up a production facility, because nobody was able to manufacture the products that we'd created. So yeah, moved from London to Bedford, so that I didn't have to well, there was no way I could make those products in my kitchen. Needed to set up a plant, so and that was really the start of the business.
So it wasn't something that was planned then to begin with, it just sort of happened.
Yeah, it happened organically. It was I suppose I was always passionate about skincare. I was always passionate about well-being. And I knew that I wanted to work in this space. I was, for me, what sort of really motivates me is when there's a problem, to find the solution.
Yeah.
So there was an idea that I would eventually create products, etc., because that's what I did all my life. But no, in terms of planning to own a skincare brand, that was not on the cards until it happened, and then it just feels so right.
You have such an inspiring story though, and such an amazing story to tell. So you should be really proud of what you've achieved.
I know, but it didn't come without its challenges.
If you had to tell us, what would you say is the biggest mistake that you made, but that also taught you a lot?
Right. So when talking about this chain in the US, suddenly, I couldn't print on my inkjet printer, but I wanted packaging to be as environmentally friendly as possible. So we'd found a supplier that did recycled glass bottles. And then I realized the limitations with recycled glass bottles at that stage. A lot of the inks used to print on bottles could not be washed out as easily. And if the clear glass bottle was no longer clear, it was not as easily recycled. So I decided, we'll use vegetable inks and we'll fire it at the lowest temperature possible so that it would wash off very easily, which made our bottles really easy to recycle. Unfortunately, what I didn't realize is, because the temperature to wash it off was so low, literally if somebody washed their hands in very hot water and then touched our bottles, it was enough for that ink to come off. So our initial batch of products that went into 300 stores created something that we called alphabetti, because people would touch the bottle and then massage the cream onto their face, and they would have a little A and an E. So that was one of the challenges. What that taught me was to actually just admit my mistake.
Yeah.
And explain to customers why it was happening. And then sort of look into recyclable environmentally solutions more closely. We were the first to do it, and we made a mistake, and our customers were really forgiving when they understood why we made the mistake.
I think it's all about being honest.
It definitely is. I think that's the one thing that all my mistakes have taught me, is that if you can just be honest about why it happened. And sometimes as an entrepreneur, you feel really stupid because it was just because you didn't think to check something.
Yeah.
And it was obvious, because it was obvious, it was right in front of you all the time. But just saying, just being honest enough to say, I'm sorry, I missed that, and I'm going to correct it in future. It teaches you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's human at the end of the day.
It is human.
Mistakes,
yes.
So.
But I think if the intention is good, if you want to do the right thing, it's going to come across.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Nitasha, I've been dying to find out more about your range of products, which you've got beautifully. I love the packaging just behind you. Can you tell me a little bit more about the range, and just tell me more about the product?
So the key aspect about Organic Apoteke is that we try to keep things as simple as possible. Our entire range consists of 8 products across 2 sort of main ranges. We have something called our rejuvenating range, And the rejuvenating range is for anybody who has dry, sensitive, dehydrated skin. And by using our serum, it becomes an anti-aging range. And then the second range is the active range, consisting of 3 products, which is for your oily, acne-prone skin. And that range really is for anybody with oily skin that they just want to rebalance, to somebody with mild to moderate acne. Now, the reason we call it active is because literally that range is to work on skin that's active. When we say active, it means there's a hormonal change. Now, during your teenage years or premenopausally, there's hormones are active. They're all over the place. And that's what the range is geared to do. What happens in teenage skin is exactly what happens in menopausal skin. You know, we don't really think about it that way, but hence we have women who have menopausal acne and think it's strange. It's not strange. It's pretty normal. But yeah, so the aim is to keep the range as simple as possible. Hence, all our products are multifunctional. We have, in the rejuvenating range, we have something called the Buttermilk Cleanser, which is a nourishing cleanser. It also is a makeup remover. And if your skin is normal, then it's all you need. It's the one product you need, because you cleanse, and because it doesn't strip the skin, it's also nourishing enough. So it actually does hydrate as it cleanses. And you know, our hero product has always been the serum, because as opposed to having multiple serums, as a lot of companies tend to do, we have one serum that covers the 7 signs of aging. So it's you know, would lightening age spots, firming lines and wrinkles by rebuilding collagen. It's rich in amino acids and peptides, rich in herbal extracts as well that actually nourish and renew the skin.
That sounds amazing. Anything that's going to save time in my skincare routine, I'd much rather have just the one product than having a range of, you know, 5 different things to put on. So I think
definitely. And for me, what's particularly important is you know, if we create a product, any product that's not effective, I think that's the biggest drain on the environment and biggest drain on resources. However, and also secondly, if we create products that have multiple functions, that's just buying a product with a multifunctional product is a way of actually being environmentally
absolutely
friendly.
Absolutely. No.
So
what is your top tip for productivity?
I'd say finding or creating a routine or a ritual that works for you. Because we're all inspired by different things, and we all our bodies need different things to actually function optimally. So my personal productivity routine is I'm an early riser, and I spend the first hour of my day doing 108 sun salutations. A lot of people say I don't have the time, you know, I don't have an hour to spare, but the truth is, because I do my 108 sun salutation, it actually stimulates my body, and I feel more able to cope with the day, but also give me the energy. It's like it powers up my body. Now that works for me. For some people, it may be meditation in the morning. But in terms of you know, of the one thing that I say that works universally is keeping a journal. And we all talk about morning writing, and that's brilliant because it's a great way of thinking up new ideas. But I think more important is, before you go to bed, is to have an offload journal where you just put in or write down all the things that have been bothering you, and kind of decide that once it's in your journal, you're going to let it go. Because that way you'd have a good enough sleep. You'd sleep quite deeply, and very often you'd come up with a solution by the next morning. So in terms of top productivity tip, it's find that ritual, find that thing that makes you thrive. So the second thing that we need to pay attention to when it comes to productivity is diet. Because we all know what makes us feel sluggish. We all know what makes us feel bloated and heavy in the afternoon. And sometimes by just being more aware of what we're eating and what makes us feel sluggish, and just leaving it out on the days you wanna feel more productive. And then we all also have the things that actually gives us more energy. You know,
Absolutely.
We thrive. I've had lots of people say to me, just by giving up cereal and having fruit in the morning, I feel so much more productive. So I'd say, you know, pay attention to these little things. See what makes you feel sluggish. And this, you know, we all already know it.
We do.
It's just about then having the discipline to let go of what's making you feel sluggish.
And I think more often than not, it's things that perhaps you shouldn't be having to begin with. So I know for myself, when I'm in the office in the afternoons, it's, reaching out for that chocolate bar or the biscuit, and then afterwards I actually feel guilty, and I do feel sluggish when I have too much sugar and that sort of thing. So yeah, I think you're right.
But it's also, giving yourself the time off as well. So giving yourself that Sunday afternoon or whenever you think you can just take time out to relax and having the treat that you want. I think that's also quite important.
Okay, so finally, I've got a little bit of a different question for you. If you had the chance to have dinner with 3 people, dead or alive, who would they be and why?
Ooh, that's a really interesting question. Yeah. I'm not sure if you watched the Woody Allen movie, Midnight in Paris.
I have seen that before,
yes. I love it because that's always sort of been, I love the 1920s, and I would have loved to have been alive to have sat in on some of the conversations then. But 3 people. 3 is hard. Can I give you 4?
Go on then.
Okay. So yeah, I'd love to have dinner with Stephen Fry, Albert Einstein, Nikola Tesla, and Rabindranath Tagore.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're quite different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Can you give us just a short sentence for each one as to why? What you'd ask them, perhaps?
So it would also, I'd love to ask each of them questions, but I'd love to know what they'd say to each other as well. That for me, that would be the more interesting bit. Is discovering what they would say to each other. I play out the conversation in my mind occasionally, because that's what I do to actually resolve issues that I'm having. Is I think about somebody else trying to solve it.
Yeah.
So the reason, well, Albert Einstein, purely because his work has always fascinated me. The fact that he could imagine himself traveling on a light beam and coming up with a theory of relativity. For me, that entire idea of using your imagination in science is fascinating, because I feel like science has lost that. And yet it's such a vital...
It is.
It's such an essential part of science. And Nikola Tesla, because I completely agree with him, electricity should have been free for all if we used it correctly. And we would probably have fewer of the environmental pollutants, few of the coal industries and all the pollution that we have on the planet right now, if only we took him more seriously. And unfortunately, it feels like with him, capitalism and commercialism actually killed a brilliant idea. So he's always been somebody I've admired greatly. Rabindranath Tagore, because he's a literary genius. And I love his take on the world. So I would have loved to have listened to him question Albert Einstein. And then the one thing that from his writing is it seems like he would have conversations and then create a very poetic way of expressing that conversation. So I'd love to have seen him express relativity and electricity in a more poetic way. And Stephen Fry, just because I think he's brilliant, I love his voice. And I think if he interviewed the 3 of them, I'd get all the answers I wanted.
Oh, okay. Oh, interesting. Thank you. Thank you for your time. It's been so interesting to get to find out more about you and your brand. And I think actually something that certainly our followers would like to know more about is how can they get your hands on your products? How can we find out more? Do you have a website? Where can we learn more about you?
In terms of the products, we have a website, organicapoteke.com. We're also launching treatments in spas across the UK shortly, so across the globe shortly. So definitely on our website you could find a spa close to you. With regards to me, there's 2 websites. It's nitashabuldeo.com that deals more with my performance science research. And the second website is introceptiveyoga.co.uk. That deals mainly with yoga and yoga philosophy.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.